Is the FIA secretly protecting Mercedes? Or has the entire Macarena wing scandal been built on a connection that does not exist? The source behind this explosive claim contains 4 separate FIA stories involving Lewis Hamilton, the British Grand Prix, and Pierre Gasly, but not one confirmed Mercedes advantage, not one verified Red Bull or Ferrari wing violation, and not one official Macarena rule. That means the shocking turn may be bigger than favoritism. It may be that unrelated investigations were used to make bias look proven. Because if the FIA changed a technical test that hurts Mercedes' rivals while leaving Mercedes untouched, the championship could shift without one major upgrade. But if no such rule exists, the entire scandal collapses. And a single official detail that could prove favoritism or destroy the accusation completely is still missing. Subscribe to the channel. To understand whether the FIA is favoring Mercedes, you first have to separate an unfair advantage from a rule that simply affects different cars in different ways. Those two things can look identical on the timing screen, but they are not the same. If the FIA changes a technical test and Mercedes loses nothing while Red Bull and Ferrari lose performance, Mercedes benefits. That part is simple. The difficult question is why. Did the FIA design the change specifically to help Mercedes? Did Mercedes influence the decision behind closed doors? Or was Mercedes simply using a different concept that happened to survive the new standard? Those possibilities lead to completely different conclusions, and the available source does not prove any of them. There is no confirmed Macarena wing regulation, no technical directive describing a new test, no evidence that Red Bull or Ferrari failed an inspection, and no official document showing that Mercedes received special treatment. That means the favoritism accusation remains unproven. But the reason people believe it deserves attention: Formula One has always been shaped by technical decisions that help some teams and hurt others. A regulation may apply equally to everyone. The consequences may be completely unequal. Imagine a city introducing a new rule that bans a certain type of tire. Every driver faces the same rule, but only 2 drivers were using those tires. Everyone else continues normally. The rule is equal on paper. The damage is concentrated in practice. That is how Mercedes could benefit from a wing test without receiving direct help. If Red Bull and Ferrari built more performance around control wing movement, a stricter inspection could force both teams to redesign. If Mercedes already used a stiffer or differently constructed wing, the team might continue without disruption. Mercedes would gain relative performance. But relative performance is not proof of favoritism. That distinction matters. A rival becoming weaker can make a car look faster, even when its own lap time does not improve. Mercedes would not need a revolutionary upgrade. It would not need a new power unit. It would not need to discover hidden speed. Red Bull and Ferrari would only need to lose a small amount, a fraction in qualifying, slightly more resistance on the straight, less confidence through a fast corner, more stress on the tires during a long run. Each loss may look minor. Together, they can change the order. And when the order changes immediately after an FIA decision, suspicion follows. Fans begin asking who requested the test, who supplied the evidence, who knew the change was coming, and which team had already designed around the new interpretation. Those are reasonable questions, but they need factual answers. The source does not provide them. Instead, it lists separate FIA stories involving Lewis Hamilton, the British Grand Prix, and Pierre Gasly. Those reports may concern legitimate penalties and reviews, but they do not establish a technical connection to Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton's name may create an emotional link because of his history with the team. Yet a penalty involving Hamilton does not prove that Mercedes influenced a wing regulation. A British Grand Prix investigation does not prove that Red Bull and Ferrari were targeted. An Alpine review involving Gasly does not prove that the FIA protected Mercedes. The connection must be demonstrated, not suggested. That is the first major weakness in the scandal. The title creates a complete story. The supporting information does not. But this is where the accusation becomes psychologically powerful. Mercedes has been one of Formula One's most influential teams. The FIA controls technical legality, and technical decisions can reshape championships. Place those 3 facts together, and the idea of favoritism begins to feel possible. But possibility is not evidence. A powerful team can benefit from a decision without causing it. A rule can hurt rivals without being written to protect Mercedes. And a technical test can change because the FIA believes the previous method was incomplete. That may still frustrate Red Bull and Ferrari. It may still change the championship, but it is not automatically corruption. To prove favoritism, something more would be needed. Different standards applied to similar components. Private information given to Mercedes but withheld from rivals. A test designed around Mercedes' weaknesses while ignoring comparable behavior elsewhere. Or evidence that the FIA enforced the same rule differently depending on the team. The source provides none of those details. Without them, the strongest claim we can make is much more cautious. Mercedes might benefit if a new wing test affects its rivals more heavily. That is not the same as saying the FIA favors Mercedes. And this is where Formula One politics becomes difficult to explain. Every team lobbies. Every team asks questions. Every team points toward rival designs. That does not mean every request succeeds. It does not mean the FIA obeys one team. And it does not mean technical complaints are dishonest. A team can raise a genuine concern and also benefit if concern leads to a rule change. Both things can be true. Mercedes could believe a rival wing violates the intention of the regulations. Mercedes could also know that restricting the design improves its own position. That does not automatically make the complaint false. It makes the motivation mixed. And mixed motivations are normal in elite competition. Red Bull would act the same way if Mercedes had an advantage it believed should be restricted. Ferrari would do the same. McLaren would do the same. Each team protects its own car. Each team challenges the cars ahead. The FIA's job is to ignore the political pressure and examine the technical evidence. That is where trust becomes essential. The governing body must apply the same test to every comparable design. The same amount of movement must be legal for everyone. The same deadline must apply, and the same consequences must follow the same failure. If that happens, Mercedes benefiting is simply an outcome. If it does not happen, the favoritism accusation becomes much more serious. But how would the public know? Most fans cannot inspect the wings. They cannot reproduce the load test. They cannot access private communication between the teams and the FIA. They depend on official explanations. That creates a major responsibility for the governing body. If the test changes, the FIA must explain the principle. Not every secret measurement, not every confidential detail, but enough to show why the old method was no longer sufficient. What movement caused concern? How will the new procedure measure it? When does the standard begin? Does it apply to all teams? And were any cars outside the limit? Those answers could reduce suspicion. Silence would do the opposite. Because when official information is missing, fans build their own explanation. And the most emotional explanation usually wins. Mercedes complained. The FIA reacted. Red Bull and Ferrari lost performance. Therefore, Mercedes must have been favored. That chain may sound convincing, but every step still needs proof. Who complained? What did the FIA find? Which teams were affected? How much performance changed? The source gives no answer. That means the accusation is running ahead of the evidence. But the competitive threat could still be real. If Red Bull and Ferrari expect a stricter test, they may begin developing alternative wings. That costs time. Engineers must change priorities. Simulator work must be repeated. New components must be manufactured. And the wider development plan may be delayed. Mercedes may not face that same disruption. That alone could create an advantage. Not because Mercedes receives extra performance, because it retains focus. Imagine two runners being told halfway through a race that their shoes may soon become illegal. They must stop thinking only about running. They must prepare replacements. The third runner continues without distraction. Even before the rule changes, the third runner gains something valuable. Clarity. That may be the hidden benefit for Mercedes. While Red Bull and Ferrari protect themselves against uncertainty, Mercedes can continue developing forward. One team reacts, another attacks, and in Formula One, momentum matters. A team that understands its car can build upgrades in a clear sequence. One part supports the next. Driver confidence grows. Setup becomes easier. Strategy becomes more flexible. But when a technical issue interrupts that sequence, the team stops progressing and begins recovering. That is a very different kind of work. Red Bull may need to regain lost front-end efficiency. Ferrari may need to recover straight-line speed or balance. Mercedes may continue improving areas it had already planned to address. That difference can close a gap quickly. But again, the source does not confirm that any of this has happened. No performance data is provided. No wing change is documented. No Mercedes gain is measured. These are possible consequences of a hypothetical rule change, not established results. And that is where the scandal takes its most important turn. The headline asks whether the FIA is favoring Mercedes. The source does not even establish the technical event required for that accusation. There is no confirmed Macarena rule, no confirmed Red Bull failure, no confirmed Ferrari failure, no confirmed Mercedes exemption. Without those four pieces, there is no factual basis for declaring favoritism, but the perception can still become damaging. Red Bull supporters may believe the championship is being manipulated. Ferrari supporters may believe their team is being restricted whenever it becomes competitive. Mercedes supporters may believe the team is being blamed simply because it adapted better. Each group begins with a different assumption. Then every future result is filtered through it. If Mercedes wins, the rule helped. If Red Bull struggles, the FIA targeted it. If Ferrari changes its wing, the old design must have been illegal. And if nothing changes, people may claim the teams are the evidence. At that point, no result can settle the argument. That is why transparency matters before the controversy becomes permanent. A clear technical explanation can separate three things: a legal design, a design that passed an incomplete test, and a genuine violation. Those are not interchangeable. A legal design deserves protection. An incomplete test deserves improvement. A violation deserves enforcement. Confusing them creates injustice in both directions. A team may be wrongly accused of cheating, or a genuine problem may remain hidden behind the claim that the car passed the old procedure. The FIA must navigate that line carefully. Too aggressive, and it appears to change the rules against successful teams. Too passive, and it appears unwilling to control designs that exploit weaknesses in the test. Every decision creates criticism, but consistency can survive criticism. Favoritism cannot. That is why the strongest evidence would not be which team benefits. It would be whether similar cars receive different treatment. Suppose Mercedes has comparable wing movement but avoids the new test. That would raise serious questions. Suppose Red Bull and Ferrari face immediate restrictions, while another team receives extra time. That would matter. Suppose confidential guidance reaches Mercedes before everyone else. That would matter even more. But none of those claims appears in the source. So the accusation remains where it began.